Yeah, okay. I had to record this and I had to run upstairs because I'm going to look at myself while I do this. I had to do this because maybe if I raise it a little bit. Oh my god, I'm actually doing what my problem is. There we go. Okay, so I had to run upstairs because as I'm driving into the cemetery, I had this epiphany of a thing that I want to make that I think needs to be made. Um, it's so hard to describe to people what my brain is like. It's so hard to get people that don't experience it to understand due to internal biases, cultural biases, so on and so forth. It's a hard thing to empathize with. Um, the term ADHD gets thrown around, and suddenly people think of like the hyperactive kid that poor parenting results in, or you know, the Adderall junkie in college that takes a bunch of this stuff because it helps them get 1,000 things done. You always hear the joke. It's like, oh, I took some Adderall to study, and then I end up cleaning the house and building an ark, and like then you have everybody that says like, oh, I feel like I have ADHD too, or it's like, oh, doesn't everybody? Oh, everybody has ADHD. They used to call it ADD back in the day. All right, back in my day, you used to just call it a kid misbehaving. But it's not true. It's not accurate. That's a very ignorant way of looking at it. It's an understandable way of looking at it, but it's wrong. It does a disservice to yourself in a quest to be a better empathetic person, and it also does a disservice to the people that struggle with it, who already have a hard time in a world not designed for them. And I found it very helpful to understand it, realize that it's something I struggle with, and it's something I need to attack. Once I got it, not that once I got it, I've always had it, but once it clicked in my head that like this is the umbrella under which my struggles fall under. Um, it made it really, really manageable. I still struggle with it. I'm like, God, I mean, the reason I'm making this video is because I struggle with it so much. If I didn't run upstairs and make this video, I would immediately forget the thing that I'm making this video for, which, funny enough, I haven't said because I'm trailing off. Okay, so I'm sitting in the car having a conversation with 30 people because I'm always having a conversation with everyone I've ever met at all times in my head. Um, I explained to random brain person, we'll call him Jeb. I was explaining to Jeb that the amount of steps it takes to do a thing is a really good indicator of whether or not I'm going to do it. Too many steps and I'll fail. Not enough steps and I'll fail. I need steps. You can't say, Chris, go build a boat. I won't do it. But if you say, hey, Chris, do build the frame, or even like, hey, Chris, build the initial the little thingy that starts the frame, I am very likely to do it. Then the second problem is if you give me 10 steps, each step is a juncture at which I can get derailed. So, build the frame, build the outer. I don't know anything about building a boat, so this was a terrible example. Build a house. Okay, we're gonna start over. Build a house, and start with the foundation. All right, Chris. Well, you're done with the foundation. We need you to build the frame. We need you to build the roof pieces. We need you to frame out all the rooms, and then we're gonna need you to start putting the paneling on the walls and the outside. And then we're going to have to start getting ready for the circuits. And like already I'm going to try that. And that's broken down incrementally enough that, oh, the mirror is driving me weird. It's broken down incrementally enough that I could get it done. But we're running a risk with too many things that I'm not going to do them. Because at every step, it's like, all right, I've finished the foundation. Next step is build the framework, right? Okay, I'm gonna build the framework. I got it. I got the framework down. Now it's I got to put the outside panels on all the walls, right? And suddenly I think to myself, man, I got to do laundry, and I'll go and do laundry, and suddenly I didn't do step 3, and there's a very strong chance that I will never get back to doing step 3, or it's going to be months later. And by the time I get back to doing step 3, step 1 and 2 fell apart and I've got to redo it. Or I forgot what I was doing, so I've got to relearn how to build the house. So it's this struggle of balancing how much we break things down, because my attention doesn't work. It's either overwhelmed or super underwhelmed. So I had this idea as I'm explaining it to Jeb, the not real person, that my words are failing to describe this. Like, hopefully, a more empathetic and clever person will hear this and they'll either get it or use these breadcrumbs to find resources that better explain it. But I thought, how cool would a game be? A game where the character experiences this thing. The player experiences these things without it overtly being ADHD. So I thought to myself, all right, the character has like a treasure that they've got to get, right? And the treasure is representative of something in my life that I want or need to get done, like money. We'll just use money for an example, like a stable savings account, right? Here's a stable savings account in the treasure chest. How do I get there? And there'll be rooms, and each room is connected by a corridor, and that corridor is the step junction. That step junction is like, all right, I've left this room, I finished this step. I either go right to the next step of getting the treasure, or I go left and see where that goes. And each one of those junctures is a chance to either keep going for the treasure or go do something else, which will have a reward unto itself with steps and junctures. And that's kind of life, right? Like, oh, I want to be financially stable, so I've got to do this, 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 this. And then you go do the first one and the second one, and suddenly it's like, oh man, I want to better understand how such and such works, and you start doing that, and that requires steps and steps. And before you have a firm grasp on how to understand this thing, one of those steps, it's like, oh man, I got a meal prep for the week, and you start to do those steps, and suddenly you're like so many side branches off, you don't even remember what the hell you were doing, and getting back to it, it's a nightmare. So how to gamify that, right? So how about a character that has, I was thinking breath, right? Like they're breathing, and you can only hold your breath for so long. So you dive underwater and you're supposed to get your treasure, right? And every time you go through a tube, you either get closer to the treasure or you go somewhere else. And each tube has like an air pocket that you could breathe in, right? So you've got to make sure that the steps are small enough that you don't run out of breath. But there's not so many steps that you can get to the treasure. And you would think to yourself, well, like, all right, then I'll just keep going to the treasure. So you create an incentive to go elsewhere. If the treasure is the only goal, then yeah, that's probably going to work. But that's not life. That's not my brain. That's not anything. We all have tons of revolving goals of various importance at any given moment. Sometimes in the more immediate, sometimes in the long term, the micro macro. Like, my goal today is to eat. Right? Like, I've got to eat today. I've got to drink water today. I have to take my medicine today. I have to get some work done today. I have to go to bed today. I have to take a shower today. I have to make my bed today. So something in the game would have to say, all right, I have to take the next step to get that treasure. That's the whole reason I'm on this mission. Fudge, I really do need this resource, though. Crap, maybe I can go do this resource. And the psychology behind it, what makes it interesting is you don't explicitly say this to the player. You just create the environment. And I think that even people with neurotypical brains are going to struggle with that if it's gamified right. Like, you're on a mission, a 10-step mission to get purple points. But your character constantly needs purple, blue, and red points, right? And you haven't seen a red point mission in a while. So you're on step 2, step 3 of getting purple points, and all of a sudden you see a a juncture, like I can keep going to get purple points. Fudge, I could really use some red points. So you start going that way. And what you immediately forget because you realized you needed the red points is every step towards red points, not only are you not going towards purple, but you're losing your progress on the purple one. You can't go back. I'm distracted by my phone. I feel like this frustration can be gamified to be a fun frustration, but it could also articulate the struggle of living with this. The struggle of, I know what I want, I know what I need, and it's very hard for me to get it under conventional, under a conventional environment with conventional approaches. Man, that would be a fun, cool game, and it would help bring awareness to the realness of this struggle. And it's not just that crazy hyper guy you know. Everybody knows that one guy that's always bouncing off the walls, and it's like, oh, that guy's got ADHD. The hyperactivity component of it, while it can manifest physically, the hyperactivity component in the description of the disorder is actually the 1,000 thoughts that are going through your head, the hyperactivity of your thought processes. Man, a game that can corral that would be cool. And it would really help to explain how fucking hard this is. Like just getting to this, right? Like so as I'm thinking about all these things and how cool it is, I'm in the car and I'm like, Chris, don't lose this. Chris, don't lose this. Because I already have stuff going on today. I can't start working on it right now. But I need to put it somewhere because in between now and whenever I would have the time to work on it, there's going to be a dozen things that happen, which are normal life things. And for each of those, there's going to be an exponential amount of things that I think about. I will lose this thought immediately. I may pick it up again in a month. I may pick it up again in a day, but I may not. So I had to hurry up and get here and record it because honestly, even recording it is easier than writing it down because then I'd have to grab a pen, grab a paper, and start doing that stuff. And those are the steps I'm talking about because I've already baked into this. Got to get to the house, get out of the car, go put the groceries that I got. I had to get some lettuce. Put the lettuce in the fridge. Come upstairs, turn on the computer, put on the headset, turn on the recording software, and start talking. Oh, and turn the light on, which sounds like, oh, that's... But those are the little steps that at each point I can do something different. Something my whole life that I've struggled with, but has gone unnoticed because I was ignorant to it. This time last year, not only would I have balked at the notion that I have ADHD, but I would balk at how real it is. Like, isn't it just people that don't know how to discipline and control themselves? No. It's a thing. Oh, you gotta label everything. I've heard people say that. They're like, oh, why do you have to put a label on everything? Well, because we communicate through language, and labeling is a fundamental concept of language. I'm not saying everything I do wrong is because of ADHD, but there's a lot of things I do wrong that you could point to and say, yeah, this is indicative of an ADHD experience. I didn't mean for this to turn into a diary, and it's 13 minutes long. Fuck. I just needed to make a note to start looking into making a game where the player experiences ADHD thought processes without knowing it. There's other games that do that. There's games that like walk you through the life cycle of depressive thoughts without being a game about depressive thoughts. Celeste is awesome at it. I mean, we're talking about a puzzle platformer, but the entirety of Celeste is actually the intrinsic experience of self-doubt and depression and overcoming it. I mean, every image in that game a metaphor for dealing with intense depression. I mean, the whole climbing a mountain thing. The mountain is not a mountain. An ADHD game would be really cool.